These are the Schoology notes, the number 2 recording, chapter 5.4. And we're going to be factoring quadratic equations in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a will be another number than 1. When a is 1, you use guess and check. When a is not 1, you're going to use the AC method. The AC method is just a system in order to be able to factor when a is not 1. So even though a is not 1, you want to write what your a, b, and c are. A is 3, b is negative 10, and c is 8. In the first video, we didn't have one of these patterns, so we're going to go ahead and have one of these patterns where you have subtraction between the first and middle term, because that's going to make your factoring pattern. So you actually are going to go ahead and set everything up. So you're going to have AC and then B. We can do that right away. So AC, 3 times 8 equals 24. And then B equals negative 10. Which means that something, and leave room for your x's, plus something is negative 10. Okay, we're going to bullet. There's going to be 3 steps here. Your 5th step will actually be the factoring. And what you need to decide right now is whether it's going to be plus plus, plus minus, or minus minus. Because you have subtraction between the first and the middle term, it is going to have to be subtraction, subtraction, because in FOIL, the last term and the last term, a negative times a negative would have been a positive. That's how you're going to get your positive 8 here. So it's minus minus. Whenever you have subtraction between the first and middle term, and addition between the middle and last term, it's going to be subtraction, subtraction. All right, now we're going to go back up. Knowing that, we're going to have a negative something and a negative something here, which means you are going to be adding them. So we need to think of factors of 24. And we're not going to worry about the negatives yet. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. And so you've got these being added. 1 and 24 would be 25. That doesn't give you 10. 2 and 12 is 14. Does not give you 10. It gives you 14. 3 and 8 is 11, does not give you 10. 4 and 6, however, does give you 10. But it's not going to be positive 4 and positive 6. It's going to be negative 4 and negative 6, which will give you a negative 4 times a negative 6 is a positive 24. So now I bring down this negative 4 and this negative 6, and they equal 10. I'm going to add the x's on. And then what happens is you bring down the first term. This is going to be the grouping method here. Grouping indicates parentheses. And you're going to bring down this 3x squared. And then you're going to bring down this last term, which is going to be plus 8. And your middle terms are going to come down as 2. Instead of bringing down negative 10x, you bring down negative 4x and negative 6x. Now, you could do these either way, because there would be common factors with negative 4x and 3x, and there would be common factors with negative 6x and 8. But I think it would be better if we brought the negative 6x here, because 3 and 6 have a common factor of 3 and x. And then we're going to bring the negative 4x here, because 4 and 8 have a factor of 4. You always separate it with a plus sign. You group, it's the grouping method, and then you use the distributive property. So you're going to factor out your common factor for 3x squared and 6x is 3x. And then you say to yourself, 3x times what gives me x squared? Well, that's x. 3x times what gives me 6x? It's going to be 2, so minus 2. And then what you know is that if you have x minus 2 here, then you have got to have x minus 2 right here. Those have to be the same, because when you check this, when you do your check to make sure it's right, you're going to end up with a table that's going to be a binomial times a binomial, and one of the sides is going to be x and negative 2. So that's why they have to be the same. Your other side, we got to bring down this plus sign. Then you would say to yourself, okay, what times x gives me negative 4x? Well, that's negative 4. And then you need to make sure that negative 4 times negative 2 is in fact positive 8. It is. So there was no problem getting x minus 2, and it made your job easier in terms of getting, so one of your sides is x minus 2. It made your job easier in terms of finding this amount right here. So we have 3x plus a negative 4. We can just say 3x minus 4. You can go plus a negative 4 if you'd like. So 3x here and negative 4 here. You need to make sure this is indeed the correct factoring. And so 3x times x is 3x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. And negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. Let's make sure everything matches. 3x squared, 3x squared. That matches. These two are like terms. Negative 6x and negative 4x is negative 10x. That matches. And then 8 matches. You are now sure that 3x minus 4 times x minus 2 is the correct factoring of 3x squared minus 10x plus 8. Now sometimes you have some that are a little bit more involved than the 5 steps I showed you on the previous problem. So we're going to look at 6x squared plus 27x minus 15. And what I want you to notice is that 6, 27, and 15 all have a common factor, and that common factor is 3. So we have to factor that out first. So we are going to factor out a greatest common factor. And that greatest common factor is going to be 3. So we're going to factor out a 3. And then we say 3 times what gives me 6? It's 2, so 2x squared. 3 times what gives me 27? That's 9x. 3 times what gives me 15? That's going to be 5, so minus 5. Now, this right here is what you are going to be looking at. The 3 will come along for the ride. So let me explain what that means. So your first step is going to be your AC. Second step is then B. So AC, then B. Your A, B, and C will be a little bit different now. Your A is going to be 2. Your B is going to be 9. And your C is negative 5. You're not really going to look at this beginning problem because you factored out a 3. You're now going to look at the 2x squared plus 9x minus 5. So AC will be 2 times negative 5, which equals negative 10. And B is 9. So you're going to need something, leave enough room for your variable, the x, plus something equals 9. Now, we have 3 steps after this. But what you need to understand is that this 3 is going to come along for the ride in these 3 steps. So this 3 is going to come down here, here, and here. You don't want to forget it, so that's why we're bringing it down. You are going to have to decide on your factoring pattern before we go any further. You have addition between the middle and the first term, and subtraction between the middle and last. Whenever there's subtraction between the middle and the last, it has to be plus, minus. So middle and last term, there's subtraction, it's plus, minus, which means this is going to be a positive and a negative. So you're going to have a positive number and a negative number. And when you have plus, minus, it's going to act like subtraction. So factors of 10 are going to be 1 and 10, 2 and 5. One of these is going to be positive, one's going to be negative, so it'll act like subtraction. So which one gives you 9? 10 minus 1 gives you 9, but 5 minus 2 gives you 3. So 10 minus 1 is what you want. And you want a positive 9, so it's going to be 10 and negative 1. Putting your x's here. And then you're going to be bringing everything down. Now here's where you have to be careful. We're going to use brackets here. So we have that 3 out in front. You are going to bring down not the 6x squared, but you're going to bring down the 2x squared. And then you're going to bring down not the negative 15, but the 5, so minus 5. Put the end of the bracket here. And then you're going to bring down the 10x and the negative 1x. It doesn't really matter which one goes where, but I think I would rather have the 10x with the 5. So I'm going to bring the 10x. I'm going to bring the 10x over here with the 5. I'm going to bring down this plus sign, and I'm going to bring the negative 1x over here with the 2x, so minus 1x. Grouping method is what we're doing here. So I'm going to group this together and this together. Don't forget, you got to have a plus sign in the middle there. Again, we're bringing our 3 along for the ride. And so we are going to bring down this bracket again. We're going to factor something out of the 2x squared and the negative 1x, which will be x. So I'm going to factor out an x. And then x times what gives me 2x squared? That'll be 2x. And then x times what gives me negative 1x? That'll be minus 1. Okay, we know that we have to have 2x minus 1 over here as well. So we come over here, we write 2x minus 1. That's going to be 2x minus 1 is going to be one of our factors, one of our sides. Remember, for our check, for the table method, one of our sides is going to be 2x and negative 1. And then you say, oh, don't forget to bring down your plus sign. And you say to yourself, what times 2x will give you 10x? Well, that'll be 5. So 5 times 2x is 10x. That's good. Now we have to double check. Is 5 times negative 1, negative 5? It is. So this 2x minus 1 worked out great. Our other side is going to be this x plus 5. So it's going to be the x and the 5. So the x comes down here. 5 comes down here. And so you have x plus 5. So this should be our factoring right here. 3 times x plus 5 times 2x minus 1. But we need to check it. So we go 2x times x is 2x squared. And there we go. 2x times 5 is 10x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. So these two are like terms, negative 1x and 10x, which is 9x. Now we check it out. So we've got 2x squared, 2x squared, 9x, 9x, negative 5, negative 5. It matches with this. Then if you want to check it further, you would simply take and multiply 3 times 2x squared, which is 6x squared, 3 times 9x, which is 27x, 3 times negative 5, which is negative 15. But this is an adequate check for what we did. We have correctly factored. It is 3 times, in parentheses, x plus 5 times 2x minus 1. Let's do one more. Oh, we don't have time for one more. There's going to be an assignment at the end of this. I want you to go ahead and work on that assignment. It will be collected, so please make sure you do it. Next page, you'll have to go to the next page for the problems. These are the 4 problems for the Chapter 5.4 Schoology assignment. You're going to use the AC method to factor the quadratic equations. There will be one of each pattern, and one of them will need to have a factor, an amount factored out before you start the AC method. Again, show all your work. I will be collecting this, put it on a piece of paper, and you'll get credit for it. Hope this is helpful.